the EPA threatens to turn out the lights. Its proposed power plant emission rule would destabilize the energy grid and end reliable electricity. Imagine flipping a light switch and not knowing if the lights will come on. Normally unthinkable. But the Environmental Protection Agency's proposed power plant rules would destabilize the energy grid, resulting in less reliable electric service. The EPA's aggressive standards require all coal-fired power plants to use a new and still tricky technology called carbon capture and storage, or CCS, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 90% by 2035, or begin co-firing with natural gas. In addition, natural gas-fired plants must capture 90% of emissions by 2035 using CCS or switch almost entirely to hydrogen by 2038. The only other option for both, shut down. These nascent technologies simply won't get the job done in the next few years. CCS is used at only one commercial power plant in North America. The only U.S. coal plant to implement CCS successfully closed in 2020 for economic reasons. CCS holds great promise, but there are significant operational and economic hurdles to its widespread deployment. The Biden administration recently acknowledged that building and using CCS faces many of the same permitting and regulatory problems plaguing other energy infrastructure. Likewise, while hydrogen may be a future solution for electricity generation, the science isn't there. Hydrogen can be made by one of two methods: electrolysis, which is incredibly costly and energy-intensive, or steam methane reforming. Most hydrogen is produced by steam methane reforming, which produces large amounts of CO2 as a byproduct and doesn't provide a net reduction in greenhouse gases. The proposed rules all but ignore these obstacles. Closing the dwindling number of coal-fired plants and most natural gas-fired plants would drastically affect electric reliability. In the past 10 years, more than 100,000 megawatts of coal generation capacity was retired. In 2022, total U.S. generating capacity was only 1.2 million megawatts. Another 40,000 megawatts of coal generation is scheduled to close in the next 6 years. As the trend continues, natural gas-fired generation will need to play an even larger role in keeping the lights on. The Energy Information Administration recently forecast that this summer domestic natural gas consumption for electricity generation will reach the second highest level on record. The numbers don't lie. Biden administration policies mean that higher consumption will be met with substantially lower supply. In 2022, the U.S. generated 4,243 million megawatt-hours of electricity, including 1,689 million from natural gas and 828 million from coal. If these plants close, that represents a loss of 2,517 million megawatt-hours, or 60% of U.S. electric generation. In 2022, all U.S. renewable resources generated a mere 913 million megawatt-hours. To replace the plants these new rules would close, the U.S. would need to quadruple its renewable energy generation in 10 years. That is to maintain present levels. It doesn't account for rising energy demand, which is projected to triple worldwide by 2050, including for new hydrogen production and an increasingly electrified vehicle fleet. Quadrupling renewables will require hundreds of thousands of miles of new long-distance transmission lines, which are difficult to build. A multi-year backlog for energy project interconnections means we are still years away from launching transmission projects needed to keep the lights on. As demonstrated time and again, the EPA doesn't have electric industry expertise. That is the purview of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is charged with keeping the nation's electric grid reliable and functioning. A week before the EPA proposed its rules, all 4 FERC commissioners, Democrats and Republicans alike, told the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee that it isn't possible in the foreseeable future to maintain a reliable grid without the coal and gas plants targeted by the new rules. If Republicans and Democrats agree the policy is unworkable, you know we're in trouble. Alarm bells have been ringing about electric capacity shortfalls that these rules would only exacerbate. The North America Electric Reliability Corporation has identified capacity shortfalls that may result in high risk of energy emergencies during peak summer conditions in an area of the nation's midsection that covers parts of 15 states and about 45 million consumers. Part of the West covering California also faces shortfall risks due to overall variability in both the resource mix and demand profile. The North America Electric Reliability Corporation has repeatedly flagged winter reliability concerns for New England, in part due to limited natural gas infrastructure. If the EPA's proposed rules force reliable generating plants to close on January 1, 2032, the unthinkable will happen. Whenever you hit the lights, you'll be crossing your fingers that they actually go on. After the Clean Power Plan was enacted in 2015, the EPA administrator admitted her plan was to force generators to comply, that is, close, before courts could decide if the rules were legal. The Supreme Court took note, stayed the plan in 2016, and struck it down in 2022. Regardless of the legality of the new proposed rules, plants will close if they are finalized, unless the courts act swiftly again. We all hope for a cleaner energy future. But that will take time and thoughtful planning. It will take bipartisan support, not radical proposals. Whatever lofty goals the EPA has, they want keep us warm at night when the heat goes off. The EPA threatens to turn out the lights. Its proposed power plant emission rule would destabilize the energy grid and end reliable electricity. Imagine flipping a light switch and not knowing if the lights will come on. Normally unthinkable. But the Environmental Protection Agency's proposed power plant rules would destabilize the energy grid, resulting in less reliable electric service. The EPA's aggressive America's gerontocracy is getting too old. Forget about aging gracefully. We've reached a moment when the old refuse to resign, when pouty octogenarians hawk sex appeal from magazine covers, okay, just one, and when officials teetering on the brink of non-compos mentis insist upon leading the country. The notion of a generational changing of the guard has become a relic. But the past days and weeks have brought several reminders that age won't be denied no matter how many live in denial. Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, California, recently returned to the Senate after a 2.5-month medical leave necessitated by a shingles infection. The oldest current serving member of Congress, Feinstein, 89, entered the chamber looking weak and diminished, presumably from the painful effects of the virus. She was in town to resume work, she said, while also saying she'd been at work all along, as though she'd never left. When a reporter asked whether she meant she had been working from home, Feinstein said, "No, I've been here. I've been voting. Please, you either know or don't know." True enough. Feinstein already announced she won't run for re-election in 2024, when she will be 91. This followed reports of her mental decline by several colleagues, including 3 Democratic senators, 3 former staffers and a Democratic House member from California.